Hello, and welcome to English in Advance. I'm Jessica. It's so wonderful to have you here with me today. If you've clicked on this podcast, you have made a conscious decision. You've decided you're not here for the basics. You are not looking for beginner phrases or intermediate grammar rules you already know. You are here because you want to push your English to the absolute highest, most proficient level. Today we are diving deep, very deep. This isn't just regular everyday English. This is C2 level practice. This is the level of mastery, of nuance, of sophistication. It's the level where you understand not just what is said, but what is meant. Over the next hour, we're going to do something truly different. This is not going to be a passive lecture where I just talk at you. This is an active workout for your brain. This is an advanced English podcast specifically designed to simulate and then deconstruct the kind of complex, fast, subtle, and nuanced conversations that native speakers have with each other every single day. We're going to listen to conversations and monologues about work, about our social lives, about complex philosophy, about media, and about our own feelings. These pieces of audio will be dense, and they will be advanced. But please don't worry. I will not just play them and leave you to figure it all out on your own. That's not what we're here for. Here is how our session today will work. First, we will listen to a piece of audio. It might be a short monologue or it might be a dialogue between two or more people. Your first job is just to listen. Don't panic if you don't catch every word. Just try to get the gist, the main idea, the feeling. See how much you can catch on the first pass. Then, after we listen, I will jump right back in and we will break it all down piece by piece, line by line. We'll look at the C2 vocabulary, the complex grammatical structures, the cultural idioms, and most importantly, the subtle inferences. After we break it all down and you understand it, we'll do a little practice to make that new language, that new skill, completely your own. This is what we call active listening. This is how you bridge the gap from just being good at English to being truly, deeply proficient. Are you ready to stop just understanding English and start mastering it? Are you ready to truly train your ear, your brain, and your voice to the C2 level? Okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's begin. For our very first segment, I want you to imagine you are in a team meeting at your job. You are sitting at a table, and your manager is speaking. Your team has just submitted a very important report on the quarterly projections, and the manager is... Well, let's just listen. As you listen, try to understand not just the words, but the feeling behind them. What is the manager really saying to the team? Here we go. Right, team. Thank you for pulling those figures together. I've had a chance to perform a cursory review of the Q3 projections, and, well, I have some reservations. Looking at the analysis, we seem to be slightly off-kilter. I'm not pointing fingers, but the data visualization suite isn't quite singing the tune I was hoping for. To be frank, it lacks granularity. I need you to circle back, touch base with the stakeholders in marketing, and really drill down on the cross-functional synergies we discussed. We are supposed to be moving the needle, and frankly, the current deliverables are somewhat perfunctory. I'm looking for actionable insights, not just a data dump. What I need from you is a more robust framework. Let's plan to reconvene EOD tomorrow, and perhaps we can review a more substantial offering. Understood? Whoa. Okay. Let's all just take a collective deep breath. How did that feel? If you are sitting there right now thinking, I think I understood most of the words, but I have absolutely no idea what that person wants me to do, then congratulations. You have just experienced C2 level corporate speak. It's a very, very specific style of communication that is incredibly indirect, full of jargon, and designed to avoid confrontation. The manager is unhappy. In fact, the manager thinks the report is bad. But did they ever say, this is bad or this is not good enough? Number, absolutely not. They used a dozen different phrases to imply it. This skill, inference, which is the ability to read between the lines, is a hallmark of the C2 level. Let's break this down phrase by phrase and uncover the real meaning. The manager started with, I've had a chance to perform a cursory review. A cursory review means a quick, superficial look. It is not detailed. This is the first clue. By saying cursory, the manager is subtly implying that the report in its current state wasn't good enough to deserve a detailed and deep review yet. It's a polite way of saying, I stopped reading because I saw problems immediately. Then they said, I have some reservations. This is a classic understatement. Reservations means doubts or second thoughts. In this professional context, it's a very polite, very standard way of saying, I have problems with this, or I don't like this. Next, we seem to be slightly off kilter. This is a great C2 adjective. Off kilter literally means unbalanced or not quite right, not aligned. Again, it's a massive understatement. It doesn't just mean a little wrong. It means this is fundamentally not aligned with our goals, or the whole foundation of this is wrong. This next one is a wonderful metaphor. The data visualization suite isn't quite singing the tune I was hoping for. When something sings, it means it's working perfectly. It's persuasive. It's clear, it's impressive. If it's not singing the tune, it means the data isn't showing the positive results or the clear story that the manager wanted to see. It's a very creative, indirect way of saying, these charts look bad or this data doesn't support our narrative. Now we get to the key criticism. To be frank, it lacks granularity. Granularity is a fantastic C2 word, and it's essential in business. It comes from the word grain, like a grain of sand. It means the level of detail. If something lacks granularity, it is too high level, too general, too vague. The manager is saying, you didn't give me the specific details. You just gave me big, vague numbers. I can't make a decision with this. Then we get a whole flood of corporate idioms and jargon. I need you to circle back, touch base. These two phrases both mean the same thing, to follow up or to contact someone. Circle back implies returning to a topic later, and touch base is a sports metaphor for making brief contact. He's saying, go talk to the marketing department. And what should they talk about? They need to really drill down on the cross-functional synergies we discussed. To drill down is another metaphor. Imagine using a drill to go deep into a piece of wood. It means to investigate deeply, to go past the surface and find the root cause or the smallest details. And cross-functional synergies? This is pure C2 jargon. Cross-functional means involving people from different departments. Synergy is when different parts work together to create a result that's better than what they could do alone. The manager is saying, you didn't analyze how our departments are or should be working together to get a better result. And here is the most powerful and most damning criticism of all. We are supposed to be moving the needle, and frankly, the current deliverables are somewhat perfunctory. Moving the needle is a vital idiom. Imagine a gauge, like a speedometer in a car. Moving the needle means making a significant, noticeable impact. It means making a difference. The manager is saying, our job is to make a big difference. And then the word perfunctory. This is a brilliant, crushing C2 adjective. Perfunctory means an action that is carried out with the absolute minimum effort or reflection. It's just checking a box. The manager is essentially saying, you did this work just to get it done, but you didn't think about it. It's lazy. That is a very, very strong criticism, but it's hidden inside this very professional, intellectual-sounding word. Finally, the manager states their demand. I'm looking for actionable insights, not just a data dump. A data dump is exactly what it sounds like, just dumping a massive load of information, like spreadsheets or charts, onto someone without any analysis or explanation. Actionable insights, on the other hand, are conclusions drawn from that data that tell the team what to do next. The manager doesn't just want data, they want answers. And the final instruction, I need a more robust framework and let's plan to reconvene EOD tomorrow. A robust framework means a stronger, more well-thought-out plan or structure. And reconvene EOD means meet again at the end of day. So you see, that entire speech, which sounded polite and professional, was actually a C2 level way of saying, this report is lazy, superficial, and totally useless. You didn't give me any details or any answers. Go back, talk to the marketing team, and do it again properly. I want to see a real detailed plan by tomorrow evening. The C2 skill here is not just knowing the definitions of words like perfunctory or granularity. It's understanding the subtext, the implied hidden meaning behind the polite professional language. It's understanding the psychology. People in positions of power often use this type of language to avoid sounding like a tyrant and to maintain a sense of team harmony, even when delivering harsh criticism. Now, let's practice this. This is your chance to use the language. I want you to imagine you are the manager. You just received a report from a colleague. The report is very enthusiastic and full of exciting ideas, but it has zero facts, numbers, or data to support its ideas. You need to politely ask for more. How could you phrase it? Try to use the word granularity or the phrase actionable insights. Take a moment and think. How would you say it? You might say something like this. Thanks, David. I really appreciate the enthusiasm here. I think these are some exciting concepts. To make this proposal stronger and to get the leadership team on board, I think we need a bit more granularity on the potential costs and the expected returns. Could you perhaps drill down on those figures so we have some clear, actionable insights for the finance team? Do you see? You didn't say this is bad or this is all fluff. You said let's add granularity and let's get actionable insights. You sound supportive, but your demand is clear. Let's try another one from the other side. Imagine you are the employee who just received that harsh feedback from the manager in our dialogue. You need to respond. You must acknowledge the criticism politely and professionally, and you must promise a better result. You need to show that you get it. Try to use the manager's own words back to them. How would you respond? A perfect C2 level response would be something like this. Thank you for that feedback. You are absolutely right. I can see now that the report as it stands is too high level and, frankly, perfunctory. I understand the need for much deeper granularity. I will touch base with the marketing stakeholders immediately to drill down on those cross-functional synergies. My team and I will build a more robust framework, and we will have a new version with clear, actionable insights for you by EOD tomorrow. That response is incredible. It shows you not only understood every single word, but you understood the demand. You didn't get defensive. You accepted the criticism and used the manager's own language to promise a solution. This is how you build trust and show competence. This is the kind of listening that gets you promoted. It's the kind of listening that truly defines C2. All right, that was intense. Let's move out of the boardroom for a while. Let's move from the professional to the personal. In our next scenario, we're going to listen to a conversation between two friends, Sarah and Mark. Sarah is just trying to confirm their plans for the weekend, but Mark is, well, listen for yourself. Again, I want you to listen for the subtext. What is Mark really saying without saying it? Here we go. Sarah. Mark! Hi, I was just calling to confirm. Are you still on for Saturday? We're all supposed to be going to that new immersive art exhibition. Mark. Ah, Sarah. Hi, yes, Saturday. You know, I'm terribly sorry, but I think I'm going to have to take a rain check. I'm absolutely swamped at work this week. Sarah. Oh, really? Again? You said you were swamped last week when we tried to organize the dinner party. Is everything all right? You seem a bit distant lately. Mark. No, honestly, it's just work has been utterly unrelenting. But if I'm being perfectly candid, I'm not entirely sure that exhibition is my cup of tea. I read a review, and it seems a bit derivative, don't you think? Sarah. Derivative? It's had rave reviews. Everyone says it's groundbreaking. I thought you loved contemporary art. Mark. I do. I suppose my tastes are just evolving. Honestly, I think I'd just prefer a quiet night in. Please don't let me throw a spanner in the works, though. You all should absolutely go and have a wonderful time. Sarah. Well, okay. It's a shame we'll miss you. Let's tentatively pencil something in for next month, perhaps, when work calms down? Mark. Yes, let's. Tentatively. Sounds good. I'll speak to you soon. Okay, so what on earth happened there? On the surface, it's a simple conversation. Mark is busy with work, and he also doesn't like this one specific art exhibition. But what is really happening? Sarah suspects it. She's the one who points it out. She says, "You seem a bit distant lately." Mark is avoiding Sarah. He is avoiding the entire friend group. But he is either too polite or perhaps too afraid of confrontation to say it directly. This entire conversation is a masterpiece of C2 level polite evasion. Let's break down the specific language Mark uses to create this distance and avoid the truth. First, Sarah asks if he's still on for Saturday. A simple yes or no is what's expected. Mark replies, "I think I'm going to have to take a rain check." This is a crucial idiom. To take a rain check means to politely decline an offer, with the implication that you will accept it at a later date. It comes from baseball, where if a game was rained out, you got a rain check to attend a future game. It's much softer and more polite than saying, "I can't go." His first excuse is that he is absolutely swamped. This is a very common alternative to, "I'm very busy." Swamped means overwhelmed, as if you are literally sinking in a swamp. Sarah, however, pushes back. This is also a C2 skill, reading the pattern of behavior. She says, "Again?" She's noticed this isn't a one-time excuse, it's a pattern. This forces Mark to escalate his language to make his excuse sound more serious. He says work has been utterly unrelenting. Unrelenting is a powerful C2 adjective. It means it never stops. It's merciless. It's constant. It gives no relief. But then he pivots. He knows the work excuse is weak, so he adds a second reason. He gives his real reason, but he frames it as a simple matter of opinion. He says, "If I'm being perfectly candid." This is a wonderful phrase. Candid means truthful and straightforward. By saying, "if I'm being candid," he is signaling that what he said before about work might not have been the whole truth. In his opinion, the exhibition is not his cup of tea. This is one of the most famous British idioms, but it's used by all English speakers. It simply means it's not my preference, or it's not the kind of thing I enjoy. And the C2 vocabulary he uses to justify this? The exhibition is derivative. This is a high-level word used in art and criticism. If something is derivative, it means it's unoriginal. It's clearly based on, or derived from, someone else's work. It's a very intellectual-sounding insult. He's trying to make his opinion sound like an objective fact. Sarah is surprised. She counters that it's had rave reviews, which means excellent, enthusiastic reviews, and is groundbreaking, which means new and innovative. Mark backpedals immediately. He doesn't want to argue about the art. That was just an excuse. He just wants to escape the situation. He says, "Please don't let me throw a spanner in the works." This is a fantastic British idiom. The American equivalent is throw a wrench in the works. A spanner, which is a tool known as a wrench in American English, is used for fixing things. If you throw it into a machine, the machine breaks. So, to throw a spanner in the works means to ruin a plan or a project. Mark is saying, "Don't let my refusal to go ruin your plan." But of course, he is ruining the plan. Finally, look at the way they end the conversation. It's heartbreaking in a very subtle C2 way. Sarah suggests they tentatively pencil something in for next month. To pencil something in means to make a provisional, unconfirmed plan. It's written in pencil, not pen, so it can be easily erased. Notice Sarah herself added the word tentatively. This shows she has very little confidence that it will actually happen. She has understood Mark's subtext. He doesn't want to see her. And Mark's reply, "Yes, let's." Tentatively, he repeats her word, tentatively, confirming her doubt. He does not want to commit. He has no intention of seeing her next month. The C2 listening skill here is understanding the entire emotional narrative. The conversation is not about an art exhibition. It's not really even about work. It's about a friendship that is drifting apart, and Mark is using C2 level excuses, unrelenting work, derivative art, to avoid a very difficult C1 level conversation, which would be, "I don't feel like hanging out with the group anymore." Now let's practice this language of evasion. It's useful both to use it and to recognize it. Imagine a friend invites you to a karaoke night. You hate karaoke. You would rather do anything else in the world, but you don't want to hurt your friend's feelings. How could you decline politely? Try to use the phrase, "my cup of tea," or "take a rain check." Take a second and think. You might say something like, "Oh, thank you so much for the invitation." That's so kind of you. To be perfectly candid, karaoke isn't really my cup of tea, but I would absolutely love to catch up soon. Can I take a rain check and we grab dinner, just the two of us, next week instead? See? You're polite, you're honest about your preference, but not mean, and you suggest an alternative. which shows you still value the friendship. Now let's practice the other side. This is harder. Imagine you are Sarah. Your friend Mark has been swamped for 3 weeks in a row. You are starting to feel like he's avoiding you. You need to ask him if something is wrong without being accusatory. How could you say, "Are you avoiding me?" in a more C2, subtle and caring way? You might say something like Sarah did. "Is everything all right? I feel like we haven't properly connected in a while." Or you could say, "You've seemed a bit distant lately, and I just wanted to make sure everything is okay with you." This opens the door for a real conversation. It shows you care about him, not just about the social plans. It's a very high-level social skill. Understanding this dance of subtext, of evasion and inference, is what separates advanced speakers from truly proficient C2 level communicators. We've talked about the professional and the personal. Now let's get abstract. C2 proficiency isn't just about navigating daily situations. It's about understanding and discussing complex, abstract ideas. For this next section, I am going to read a short monologue. I want you to imagine this is an excerpt from an essay or a philosophical podcast. The topic is success. This is going to be dense. It will be full of C2 academic vocabulary. Please do not try to understand every single word. That's not the goal. The goal is to understand the argument. What is the speaker's main point? Here we go. When we, as a society, discuss the concept of success, we often fall into the trap of using metrics that are, by their very nature, superficial. We instinctively quantify it. Salary figures, job titles, the square footage of a home. But this preoccupation with the material trappings of success invariably obfuscates the underlying, more profound query. What truly constitutes a life well lived? Is it, as our culture seems to suggest, the relentless pursuit of an ever-receding horizon of ambition? Or is it perhaps found in the minutiae of daily contentment? This dichotomy, I believe, is at the heart of the modern malaise. We have lionized the hustle, but we have concurrently marginalized the intrinsic value of simple existence, of presence. Perhaps true success is less about acquisition and more about alignment, the alignment of one's daily actions with one's genuine internal values. Anything else, however impressive it may seem, is just elaborate window dressing. Okay, that was a lot. If your brain feels a little bit fuzzy or tired after that, that is perfectly normal. That was C2 academic and philosophical language. So, what was the argument? The speaker is arguing that our common definition of success, which is based on money and status, is superficial. They argue that this obsession with stuff hides the real question. The speaker then proposes that true success is aligning your daily actions with your internal values. Everything else is just window dressing. Let's dismantle this. Let's look at the C2 vocabulary that builds this argument. The speaker starts, metrics that are, by their very nature, superficial. Metrics are systems of measurement. Superficial means on the surface lacking depth. So in ways of measuring that have no depth. We instinctively quantify it. To quantify is a key academic verb. It means to measure and express something as a number. We turn success into a number. This preoccupation with the material trappings of success. A preoccupation is an obsession, something you think about all the time. And material trappings are the physical objects associated with a certain lifestyle, especially wealth. Things like big houses, nice cars, expensive clothes. And this preoccupation invariably obfuscates the underlying, more profound query. What a sentence! Invariably is a C2 adverb meaning always or without fail. Obfuscates is a powerful C2 verb. It means to make something unclear, confusing, or obscure, often deliberately. A profound query is a deep, philosophical question. So that whole phrase means our obsession with material stuff always makes the real deep question harder to see. And that question is, what truly constitutes a life well lived? To constitute means to be the parts of or to make up. What parts make up a good life? The speaker then presents two options. First, the relentless pursuit of an ever-receding horizon of ambition. Relentless means non-stop, merciless. An ever-receding horizon is a beautiful and sad image. The horizon is the line where the sky meets the earth. You can walk towards it forever, but you will never, ever reach it. It always moves back. This is a powerful metaphor for an ambition that can never be satisfied. The second option, found in the minutiae of daily contentment. Minutiae. This word, pronounced minutiae, means the small, precise, or trivial details of something. The speaker is asking if success is in the tiny details of being happy every day. The speaker calls this choice a dichotomy. A dichotomy is a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being complete opposites. And this dichotomy is at the heart of the modern malaise. Malaise is a French word that has been adopted into English. It means a general feeling of discomfort, illness, or unhappiness in a person or a society. But the exact cause is difficult to identify. Modern malaise is that vague cultural feeling that something is just wrong with modern life. This next part is fantastic. We have lionized the hustle, but we have concurrently marginalized the intrinsic value of simple existence. To lionize someone is to treat them as a celebrity, to glorify them, to treat them like a lion, the king of the jungle. We lionize the hustle, the culture of working hard 24/7, but concurrently, which is a C2 adverb for at the same time, we have marginalized, which means treated as unimportant or peripheral, the intrinsic value, the natural core worth of just savoir being. The speaker concludes that success is less about acquisition and more about alignment. Acquisition is the act of getting things, like money and objects. Alignment is the act of bringing things into the correct relationship. And the final line, anything else, is just elaborate window dressing. Window dressing is a great idiom. It refers to the things that are designed to make a shop window look good, but which have no real substance or value themselves. They are just for show. So you see, this entire monologue is a complex academic argument. The C2 skill is the ability to follow this abstract logic and to understand the specific, high-level vocabulary used to build it. Let's practice this. This is more about concepts than just phrases. I want you to try and use some of this powerful vocabulary. Think about your own life or your own culture. What is something that our society lionizes that you personally think is superficial? And take a moment to form a sentence. You might say, I think our society tends to lionize the idea of being famous on social media, but I find it all very superficial. Or, I think our culture lionizes extreme wealth, but it's just a material trapping. Great. Let's try another. Think about your own definition of a life well lived. How would you describe it? Try to use the word constitutes or alignment. You might say, for me, a life well lived constitutes having strong relationships with my family and friends and having time for my hobbies. Or you might say, I am working on finding more alignment between my job and my personal ethics. That, for me, is success. This is C2 thinking. It's using language not just to describe the world, but to analyze it, to take it apart, and to build new, complex ideas. All right, let's shift gears again. We've done work, social life, and philosophy. Let's talk about the media. A huge part of C2 proficiency is not just consuming media, like news articles, documentaries, or other podcasts, but critically analyzing it. In this next dialogue, two colleagues, Alex and Ben, are discussing an article they both read in their company newsletter about a new company policy. Listen for the language of critique. How does Ben analyze the article? He doesn't just read it. He dissects it. Here we go. Alex. Hey Ben, did you get a chance to read that article in the company newsletter about the new work from anywhere policy? Ben. The one that was published this morning? Yes, I did. And frankly, Alex, I found it to be a bit of a hatchet job. Alex. A hatchet job? That's a strong assertion. I just thought it was outlining the potential problems. I thought it was, well-researched. Ben. Oh, the facts they did include were correct, I suppose, but the omission of context was glaring. Did you notice they only interviewed managers from departments that rely on in-person work? They didn't speak to a single person from the tech team or remote staff. Alex, I didn't notice that, actually. Ben, and the language. They kept referring to the new policy as a bureaucratic overreach and a costly experiment. Those aren't neutral descriptors. The entire piece was underpinned by a very specific, undeclared agenda to make the policy sound like a failure before it's even begun. Alex, wow. I see your point. I suppose I was just reading for information, not analyzing the spin. It's insidious, isn't it? Ben, precisely. The most effective bias isn't overt. It's woven into the very fabric of the narrative. They cherry-pick the data to substantiate their preconceived conclusion. This is an incredibly important C2 skill, media literacy. Ben is not reading the article. He is dissecting it. He is reading it like a critic. Let's look at his amazing C2 vocabulary. He starts by calling it a hatchet job. This is a brilliant idiom. A hatchet is a small axe. A hatchet job is a piece of media, an article, a review, a movie that is a strong, vicious, and deeply biased attack on a person, an idea, or a company. Alex calls this a strong assertion. An assertion is a confident and forceful statement of fact or belief. Ben defends his assertion. He says, why, the omission of context was glaring. Omission is the act of leaving something out. Glaring means painfully obvious or shining a bright light. So, it was incredibly obvious that they left out important information. He points out they only interviewed proponents of the old system. Then he analyzes the language itself, not just the facts. This is a very C2 thing to do. He says the phrases bureaucratic overreach, which means the organization interfering too much, and costly experiment are not neutral descriptors. They are loaded words designed to make you feel a certain way. This is his key point. The entire piece was underpinned by a very specific, undeclared agenda. To be underpinned by, something means to be supported or based on it from below. An undeclared agenda is a hidden motive, a secret plan or goal. Ben is saying the article seems like news, but it's really an argument with a hidden goal. Alex catches on. He says he wasn't analyzing the spin. Spin is a great word. It's a metaphor from sports, like putting spin on a ball to make it curve. In media, spin is the biased way that information is presented to make it seem more favorable or unfavorable. Alex then uses a fantastic C2 word. It's insidious, isn't it? Insidious describes something that proceeds in a gradual, subtle way, but with very harmful effects. A slow, creeping poison is insidious. A rumor that slowly destroys someone's reputation is insidious. Ben agrees. Ben finishes with a fantastic summary. He says the bias isn't overt, which means obvious or open. Instead, it's woven into the very fabric of the narrative. This metaphor, woven into the fabric, means it is an inseparable, fundamental part of the story's structure. And how did they do it? They cherry-picked the data to substantiate their preconceived conclusion. This sentence is pure C2. To cherry-pick means to choose only the data or examples that support your argument, while ignoring all the ones that don't. To substantiate is a C2 verb that means to provide evidence for or to prove, and a preconceived conclusion is a conclusion you decided on before you even looked at the evidence. So Ben's final sentence is a masterpiece. It means they decided what they wanted to say first, and then they only picked the facts that proved they were right. This is C2 level critical thinking expressed with C2 level language. Now let's practice this. Imagine you just watched a documentary about a historical event, but you felt it was very one-sided and unfair. How could you criticize it? Try to use the phrase hatchet job or cherry-picked. Take a moment. You could say, I was really disappointed in that documentary. It felt less like a history lesson and more like a hatchet job on the main general. They completely ignored all of his successes. Or the narrative was compelling, but it was clear they cherry-picked the interviews to fit their argument. They didn't speak to a single opposing historian. Great. Now let's try a harder one. Imagine you are in a meeting and a colleague presents data that you feel is misleading because they left out key information. You need to disagree politely but firmly. How could you point out the bias? Try using the word omission or underpinned. This is very advanced. You might say, "Thank you for that presentation, Sarah. The data you've gathered is interesting. I am, however, a bit concerned about the omission of the Q3 data. I feel that to get a full picture, we really need to include it. As it stands, the conclusion seems to be underpinned by the assumption that only Q4 matters, and I'm not sure I agree with that premise." That is a C2 level professional challenge. You didn't say you're wrong or you're lying. You said, I'm concerned about the omission. This is the language of influence and intelligence. We are covering so much ground. I hope you're feeling your brain stretch and grow. For our next section, I want to focus on a C2 grammatical concept as much as a lexical one: complex hypotheticals. C2 speakers don't just talk about what is. They spend a lot of time talking about what could have been, what might be, or what they would do if. They do this using complex and mixed conditional forms, often with inversion. This next monologue is someone reflecting on their life and career. Listen to how they talk about the past. Notice the if clauses and the clauses that sound like if clauses. Here we go. It's a fascinating thought experiment, isn't it? Sliding doors. Had I not taken that initial job, the one I ostensibly despised, I never would have met my co-founder, Maria. And had we not been so fundamentally incompatible in our working styles, we never would have had that cataclysmic disagreement that forced me to strike out on my own. It really begs the question, Are our greatest triumphs not the result of careful planning, but rather the serendipitous byproducts of our most significant failures? If I were to go back knowing what I know now, I'm not even sure I would change that ostensibly disastrous decision. To do so would be to unravel the very tapestry of my present existence. It's a curious paradox, isn't it? The notion that our worst mistakes are, in fact, the unshakable cornerstones of our foundations. This is a beautiful, reflective C2 level monologue. The speaker is exploring how their failures accidentally led to their success. The grammar is what makes this C2. Let's look at the first key sentence. Had I not taken that initial job, I never would have met Maria. This is a third conditional. It's about a hypothetical past. The normal C1 level structure is, if I had not taken. But at a C2 level, we often use inversion to make it sound more formal and eloquent. We drop the word if and we invert the subject and the verb. Had I not taken. It's a purely hypothetical past action, taking the job, and its purely hypothetical past result, meeting Maria. The speaker says they ostensibly despise the job. Ostensibly is a fantastic C2 adverb. It means apparently or seemingly. The speaker is implying that they seem to hate the job, but maybe deep down it was good for them. Then we get another inverted third conditional. And had we not been so fundamentally incompatible. Incompatible means unable to exist or work together. We never would have had that cataclysmic disagreement. A cataclysmic event is a violent, sudden disaster. A cataclysmic disagreement is a huge, life-changing fight. This fight forced the speaker to strike out on my own, which is an idiom meaning to start something independently. The speaker then asks a philosophical question. Are our successes the serendipitous byproducts of our failures? Serendipitous is an adjective from the noun serendipity, which means finding good things by pure accident. A byproduct is something produced in the process of making something else. So, serendipitous byproducts are accidental, fortunate results. Now, the grammar shifts. This is very important. The speaker says, if I were to go back, I'm not even sure I would change. This is a mixed conditional. If I were to go back is a formal second conditional, setting up a present or future hypothetical. It's impossible for me to go back now. I'm not even sure I would change is the present hypothetical result. It connects an impossible present idea to a hypothetical present action. Why would they not change it? Because to do so would be to unravel the very tapestry of my present existence. To unravel a tapestry, which is a complex, beautiful woven cloth, is a powerful metaphor for completely undoing the complex, interconnected structure of their current life. The speaker calls this a curious paradox. A paradox is a situation or statement that seems contradictory or absurd, but in reality expresses a possible truth. The paradox is, our worst mistakes are the unshakable cornerstones of our foundations. Cornerstones are the essential, foundational stones on which a building is built. So the C2 skill here is the ability to use inverted conditionals, mixed conditionals, and abstract metaphors to discuss complex, counterfactual ideas about one's own life. Let's practice this grammar. It's difficult, but it is so powerful. I want you to think about a small, bad decision you made in the past that led to a good result. Maybe you missed a bus, or got a bad grade, or lost a job. Try to build a sentence using the inverted third conditional. Had I not? For example, had I not missed my flight, I never would have met the person who became my husband. Your turn. Think of one. Maybe you said, had I not broken my leg, I never would have discovered my passion for painting. Or, had I not failed that exam, I wouldn't have studied so hard and found the subject I truly love. Or, had I not lost that job, I never would have started my own business. Now let's practice the vocabulary. Think of a decision in your life that seemed bad at the time but was good. Use the word ostensibly. You could say, my ostensibly terrible first apartment was actually in the best neighborhood, where I met all my friends. Or, losing that job was ostensibly a disaster, but it forced me to strike out on my own, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. This is the language of reflection, of wisdom. This is C2. We have time for one more major scenario, and I think it's one of the most difficult and one of the most important C2 skills, the art of subtle professional disagreement. In many cultures, and especially in high-level professional or academic settings, directly saying, I disagree or that is a bad idea can be seen as rude, simplistic, or uncooperative. C2 speakers have a whole toolkit of language to disagree strongly while sounding polite, collaborative, and intelligent. In our final dialogue, two team leaders, Priya and David, are in a meeting. Priya is stating the plan. David thinks the plan is a disaster. Listen very carefully to how he disagrees. He never says no. Here we go. Priya. Okay, everyone. So the consensus from the leadership team is that we migrate the entire client database to the new software platform by the first quarter. It's an aggressive timeline, but the benefits are huge. David. I appreciate the team's enthusiasm for the new platform, I really do, and I certainly see the long-term benefits. However, I'm inclined to think that the Q1 timeline might be somewhat ambitious. Priya. Ambitious. The engineering team ran the numbers. They said it was feasible. David. Feasible perhaps, but not optimal. With all due respect to the engineering team, I'm not entirely convinced that they've factored in the requisite training period for the global sales staff. A migration of this magnitude is bound to have unforeseen complications. Perhaps a phased rollout starting with a non-critical department like internal HR would be a more prudent approach. I'm just wary of jeopardizing our Q1 client relationships over a self-imposed deadline. Priya. I see. So you're advocating for a more cautious strategy. David. I'm advocating for a sustainable one. Rushing this could very well prove to be a false economy. This is a masterclass in C2 diplomacy. Let's be very clear. David thinks the Q1 deadline is a terrible, dangerous, and stupid idea. But he never says that. He attacks the plan without attacking a single person. Let's break down his technique step by step. First, he agrees with Priya. This is a classic technique. Start with agreement. I appreciate the enthusiasm. I certainly see the long-term benefits. This makes him sound like a team player, not an obstacle. He validates her point first. Second, he delivers the first disagreement, but he softens it with C2 level phrases. He doesn't say, the timeline is impossible. He says, I'm inclined to think. This is a very soft intellectual way of saying, I think. And he says the timeline is somewhat ambitious. In this context, ambitious is a C2 level code word. It's a euphemism for unrealistic or impossible. Priya pushes back. The engineers said it was feasible. Feasible means possible to do. Third, David's next line is brilliant. Feasible perhaps, but not optimal. This is a key distinction. He's saying, Just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. Fourth, he has to disagree with the engineering team, which is dangerous. He prefaces this disagreement with a magic phrase, "with all due respect." This is a set phrase that means, I am about to disagree with you or criticize you, but I want to sound polite. He says he's not entirely convinced, another soft phrase, that they have factored in or considered the requisite or necessary training. He points out that a migration of this magnitude, a change this big, is bound to have unforeseen complications. This means problems are guaranteed to happen. Fifth, and this is critical, he offers a solution, not just a problem. He suggests a phased rollout, introducing it in stages, and calls this a more prudent approach. Prudent is a fantastic C2 word for wise and careful. Sixth, he states the stakes. He explains why he is concerned. I'm just wary of jeopardizing our Q1 client relationships. Wary of means cautious or nervous about. Jeopardizing means putting at risk. And notice his last point. See, over a self-imposed deadline. This is a powerful political move. He's reminding everyone that this deadline isn't from a client. It's a deadline they made up so they can change it. Priya summarizes, "You're advocating for a more cautious strategy." The phrase, to advocate for something means to publicly support it. And David's final correction is perfect. I'm advocating for a sustainable one. He replaces her slightly negative word, cautious, with a positive business word, sustainable. He wants a plan that can last. And his final killer argument, rushing this could very well prove to be a false economy. This is a C2 level concept. A false economy is an action that seems to save money or time in the short term, but which will actually cost more money or time in the long run. He's saying, if we rush this and it breaks, fixing it will take more time and money than just doing it slowly and properly the first time. This is C2 level persuasion. David wins the argument, and he did it without making a single enemy. He sounded like the wisest person in the room. Let's practice this difficult, subtle language. Imagine your boss suggests a new marketing slogan for your company that you think is very confusing and unprofessional. You need to disagree. You cannot say, "That's a terrible slogan." How could you disagree using David's techniques? Try to use "I'm inclined to think" or "I'm not entirely convinced." You might say, "That's an interesting direction, boss. I see what you're going for. However, I'm just not entirely convinced it clearly communicates our core value to our target audience. I'm inclined to think we need something that speaks more directly to the problem we solve. Perhaps we could brainstorm some alternatives based on that idea." See? You stated the problem doesn't communicate our core value and offered a solution, brainstorm alternatives, all while sounding collaborative and respectful. Let's try one more. Your team wants to cut the budget for customer support to save money. You think this is a disaster waiting to happen. How could you argue against it using the concept of a false economy or the word prudent? You could say, "I understand the need to cut costs. I really do. And I'm on board with finding savings. But I'm wary of cutting the support budget. I fear it could prove to be a false economy. If our customer satisfaction drops and our clients leave, we'll lose more money in sales than we saved on the budget. I think the more prudent approach would be to find savings elsewhere, perhaps in our marketing spend, rather than in a client-facing department." And just like that, our hour of C2 level practice is complete. We've covered a massive amount of ground. We've gone from the boardroom to a coffee shop, from abstract philosophy to media criticism, from complex grammar to the art of diplomatic disagreement. How are you feeling? If your brain is tired, that is a very good sign. It means you are truly engaged, truly listening, and truly learning. This was not easy. If you felt lost at times, that is perfectly normal. C2 is a journey, not a destination. The key is to expose yourself to this kind of complex, nuanced language again and again. So I highly encourage you to save this podcast. Come back and re-listen to it next week. See if you can understand 10% more. See if the phrases that confused you the first time, like perfunctory, or obfuscate, or false economy, are a little clearer the second time. That is how mastery is built. Thank you so much for joining me today on English in Advance. If this deep dive practice was helpful for you and you want to continue pushing your English to the highest level, please, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. We are here to help you move beyond fluency and toward true proficiency. I have a question for you to practice in the comments. Which of the concepts or phrases we discussed today was the most challenging or the most interesting for you? Was it the corporate speak like perfunctory? The abstract academic vocabulary like obfuscate? Or the subtle diplomatic language like a false economy? Let me know in the comments below. I read them and I would love to hear what you're thinking. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep challenging yourself. You are doing fantastic. I'm Jessica, and this has been English in Advance. I'll talk to you in the next one.